Hello. Thank you so much to everyone who's already watched the videos that I've made or read the messages about UMN's change process and has sent in feedback in one way or another. It's been wonderful to be hearing everything that people have to say in response to this. Much of it supportive, and much of it pointing out ways that we can improve or disagreeing with aspects of the change. We really welcome all of that feedback, and we're taking that into account in our ongoing discussions on this change process. The LT met earlier this week, and one of the things on the LT meeting agenda, of course, was to review some of the key feedback so far on the change process. And out of that, we've agreed one significant change in the agenda that I presented 2 weeks ago. And we've also come up with a number of things we want to clarify. So I'm going to try to present those in a way that is clear, but I'm sure in some cases it'll open up new questions. Please do keep feeding back on this. So first, let me share the one significant change that we've agreed to the agenda based on the feedback we've received so far. The original agenda, you'll recall, we said that in provinces 5, 6, and 7, we would appoint 3 groups who from February until June would be reviewing all the possible districts where we could have a cluster and would make recommendations in June so that we'd decide from July what our clusters in those provinces would be. Now, that was an idea that would have opened us up to potentially going into new areas that where the need is possibly even greater than in the districts we're currently serving in. However, as we looked at it and discussed it in the LT meeting earlier this week, we really felt that it's a change too far. It's too much change to pile in at one time. And so what we're now proposing is in provinces 5, 6, and 7, we will commit to staying in our current districts there. So what that will mean is that in province 5, our clusters going forward will be in Kabul-Vastu district and in Rukum East. In province 6, our clusters will be in Rukum West and in Mugu. And in province 7, our clusters will remain in Doti and Bajang. And this allows us to focus in on, we still want each cluster team to propose a focusing of the work in those areas. So in each district where at the moment we may be working between 3 and 8 Gampalikas and Nagarpalikas, we want in each of our target districts to have a cluster that's focused in primarily in just 2 Gampalika or Nagarpalika. But we think that it'll be possible for our cluster teams to review the different municipalities against criteria that we will share at the end of this month, and to then review that and identify which are the 2 Gampalika and Nagarpalika in each of our existing districts that we're going to commit to focusing on in our next strategic period. So that means we will see by the end of February, the LT meeting that we have scheduled then will review the recommendations that have come in from each cluster, and we'll agree which Gampalikas in each of our existing clusters we will be focusing on for new projects and for our work going forward. We do anticipate that in the next strategy period, 2020 to 2025, at some point, probably around the midpoint of that period, we'll then do a geographic review and might change at that time some of the cluster locations in Western Nepal. But for the time being, we've listened to and taken seriously feedback suggesting it's all too much change at one time. We've concluded that's right. And so we'll, instead of having an extended period of uncertainty about where we'll be working between February and July, we're now going to try to shorten that and commit to staying in those 6 districts that we're currently working in the West. So that's the change that we're now putting into our proposed agenda. And there are a number of other points that we just wanted to clarify, to try to make more clear things that might have been a bit confusing. One is around the nature of the provincial office that we mentioned, that we think that in provinces 5, 6, and 7, we're likely to need some level of staff at the provincial level. I just want to be very clear that we don't know yet, with the federal system, what kind of staffing we will need there, but our expectation is that it'll be very small. We don't see our provincial office as a decision-making office. We see it more like our current Nepalganj office, maybe a slightly expanded version of that, but an office to provide logistical and liaison support to the clusters. So a couple of comments, some of the feedback we've had wanted to confirm that, or wondering if we were setting up a decision-making center at province level, and I just wanted to clarify that's not our intent. That's not what our vision is for those province offices. There are going to have to be a number of changes in the structure of the program team here in Tapatali, obviously, based on the changes that we're recommending. We're reviewing that, and I think we won't finalize recommendations on what the structure of the Tapatali team will be until after we've agreed at the end of January to commit to the changes that we're outlining for the cluster work. The one thing I'll say is that we are confident that the role of technical team leader in Tapatali will remain an important one. We're not considering ending that role. Of course, it is going to be changing considerably, and we're scheduling a meeting with all the technical team leaders at the end of this month to discuss together, brainstorm, how is the role going to change? What's it going to look like going forward? Look forward to more news on that early in February for all of us who aren't part of those meetings that will go on at the end of January. I said in my video 2 weeks ago that we wanted to make sure we had more capable technical officers at the partner level. I just want to be clear that when we talk about that, we're not talking about seconding UMN staff into partners. We're not talking about trying to push people who currently have a PO role to go work for a partner instead of working for UMN. That's not the vision that we have. What our vision is we want to try to make it possible for our partners to hire higher quality technical officers for the projects than they have been so far. And one of the key ways we want to do that to help them hire and retain better staff is having bigger projects for those of our partners who are primarily grant-taking, project-implementing partners. So I hope that's clear on that point. In general, we would like to keep our current PMs and POs until the current projects end. If their contract ends before the end of the project, in most cases, what we're envisioning is that we would extend the employment contract until the project ends. For example, if someone's contract ends in July 2018, but their project runs until 2019, we don't see in most cases that we would be looking to start a cluster project manager role from 2018. That would be a lot of disruption for just a relatively short time period left in the project. So in that case, what we would expect to do in most cases would be to extend the contract of the PM and PO until the project ends in 2019. If we were looking at projects that we have already that end in 2020, or even one or two that are scheduled to go later than that, that might be an exception. That might be a case where we'd look at that and say, at some point in the next year or two, we will move that project to being based in the cluster, run by a cluster-based project manager. In general, we're going through a process right now of reviewing our projects to be able to give a clearer understanding of what we mean when we say case by case. But in general, I just want to say our intent is not to try to transition all of our current PMs and POs into just a cluster PM role by the middle of this year or the end of this year. We expect in general current PMs and PO roles to extend until the projects that they're currently in are complete. If both project and contract end at the same time, and we apply for a new project or a follow-on project or a next phase, then yes, the next phase project, the new project, we will hire for that a cluster-based project manager. And the way we're going to do that is through internal recruitment. And it's an internal recruitment for which we're going to open it up to any qualified person in UMN. So when we start having new projects and we're hiring cluster-based PMs for that, we'll welcome applications from current PMs, whether based in Tapatali, current POs based in the field, current cluster team leaders if they're interested in the empowered cluster project manager role. But that will be an internal recruit first and foremost, and only if we can't find a suitable candidate within UMN applying for the cluster PM role in a new project, only then will we open it up to a broader recruit externally. If someone's contract goes on beyond the end of a project, that's something we're going to have to deal with on a case-by-case basis. So I'm sorry I can't provide more clarity on that right at the moment. In Sunsari and Daring, we intend to finish off all of our current projects using our current POs, PMs, CTLs. We're not looking at any re-recruitment of CTLs or PMs for Sunsari or Daring in the next 2 years. Of course, staff from Sunsari and Daring are welcome to apply for any new roles elsewhere in the organization, and if they do, we'll hire for people to replace them in those roles in the districts that we're proposing to exit from. We're in the process right now of reviewing job descriptions and putting together draft job descriptions for cluster project manager, cluster team leader under the new empowered model. And that'll include their level on the UMN salary scale. And we're going to share those drafts as soon as possible. I'm sorry I don't have them right now, but that'll also help people to, we'll share what the qualifications are for those roles, educational and experience qualifications, and that'll help bring some clarity. I know that a lot of people are wondering, will I be qualified to apply for a cluster-based PM role or a CTL role? We're hoping to answer those questions very soon. We're also considering redundancy provisions for people whose jobs come to an end because of this change process. We'll share our plans on that as soon as possible. We're basically looking at what both what UMN can afford and what our staff are likely to need, and we'll make a proposal based on that. And those are the points that I wanted to bring some clarification on for now. I hope that does clear some things up, although I know that wherever I've said case by case, it leaves question marks, it leaves unclarity. We're continuing to work on this. You can expect another video from me next week to try to clear up some more points and announce any other changes that we're already ready to agree based on the feedback we're getting. So please do keep the feedback coming. It will help us to clarify anything that's unclear right now, and it'll also all feed in to our final agreement on the agenda for change, which we'll agree at the end of the month. Thank you very much.